Tonight, disturbing new reporting about a police youth program linked to nearly 200 allegations of sex abuse and misconduct across the country. An investigation by the Marshall Project in partnership with NBC News finds that law enforcement personnel are accused of grooming, sexually abusing, or engaging in some type of inappropriate behavior with teens and young adults enrolled in an Explorer program, as it's called. The majority of those affected are teenage girls, some as young as 13. The program was created by the Boy Scouts of America. It's sort of a mentorship or even an internship program with local law enforcement agencies. It's been running for decades. According to the investigation, officers accused of abusing teens spanned in the ranks from patrolmen all the way up to chiefs of police. Some were department veterans known in their communities for the work they did. Others had been barely working at their agencies for a year or so. Now, a lot of those cases have led to criminal charges, but in some cases, officers were not even required to register as sex offenders. In other cases, officers got to keep their jobs after a reprimand or just a short suspension. The Boy Scouts, which sets the guidelines for the Explorer programs, tells the Marshall Project in a statement it is committed to holding offenders, in its words, accountable. Lucas, one of the reporters who's working on the Peace Force right now is helping us to break it all down. She's a writer on the project, and she joins us. Can you give us a little bit more here? Now, we understand that many of these cases resulted in some sort of charges or consequences, but there's one community near Boston where people are still asking for justice. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so our story really centers on one woman in particular. Her name is Sandra Birchmore. And when she was 13 years old, she joined her local police Explorer post in Stoughton, Massachusetts, which is about an hour outside of Boston. And she really admired police officers. She wanted to become an officer one day. And she stayed in the program from age 13 all the way through high school. About a decade later, so February 2021, she was 23 years old and newly pregnant, and she was found dead from an apparent suicide. One of the last people believed to have seen her alive was one of the officers that she met through the program, through the Explorer post. And an internal police investigation conducted after her death found that that officer, as well as his brother, who was an officer and also an Explorer mentor, as well as a third officer who was a veteran who oversaw the program, had separate sexual relationships with Sandra in her early 20s. After her death, her family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the three officers as well as the Stoughton Police Department in the town of Stoughton. That lawsuit is ongoing, and earlier this year, a judge in a ruling allowing that lawsuit to continue, a part of his decision included text messages that the police investigation uncovered in which one of the officers acknowledges having sex with Sandra when she was 15 years old. The officers have denied any wrongdoing. They have all resigned from their jobs with the police department, and they are not currently facing any criminal charges. It's been just over 3 years since she died, and thousands of people have signed an online petition calling for further investigation into her death and the circumstances of her life. And more than 5,000 people have joined a Facebook group called Justice for Sandra Birchmore, calling for the same.
Yeah, Lakedra, this investigation found that there was really a lack of oversight, right? And that kind of allowed the abuse to happen. I knew a lot of my fellow high schoolers back in the day, and that were in these Explorer programs. Any indication at all that things have changed, that there's more oversight or better oversight, or is that up to individual police departments?
That's a great question. What we found in terms of the response from police departments really depended on the locale. Some departments, when officers were charged or convicted of sexual abuse or misconduct, they just ceased operating their Explorer programs, while other departments have tried to put more rules in place, for instance, explicitly banning fraternization between Explorer participants and officers, or limiting certain aspects of the program. One huge aspect of Explorer posts is the ride-along, where participants can accompany officers. But this can take the entire patrol shift and sometimes happen overnight. So some departments have reduced that to maybe 1 or 4 hours, or there's a debriefing that might happen afterward, or they've tried to ensure that participants are not just interacting with one specific officer, that they are interacting with several officers in the program. And what experts have told us is that a crucial part of continuing Explorer programs is less isolation for participants and more transparency when it comes to the rules and policies that are in place, and communicating that not just to the officers but to the participants and their parents.
Lakeisha Chavis, who is with the Marshall Project. Lakeisha, thank you for your reporting. Nice job. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.